They found every mirror in the house draped with cloth, and a slab of raw bacon lying on the bedroom floor beside the axe. And that's not even the most disturbing thing about what happened in Villisca. Tonight we're walking through the house, step by step, past the blood-stained floorboards, past the untouched breakfast on the kitchen table, past the single axe left upright in the hallway, and into the silence where 8 people stopped breathing, and no one ever explained why. It's June 10th, 1912, 11:30 p.m., a warm Iowa night. Fireflies blink over cornfields. The Moore family is asleep, 6 of them in a 2-story white clapboard house on 602 East 2nd Street. Josiah Moore, 43, a respected merchant. Sarah, his wife, 39. Their 4 children, Herman, 11, Catherine, 10, Boyd, 7, and Paul, 5. 2 guests sleep in a downstairs parlor bedroom, Lena and Ina Stillinger, 12 and 8, girls who'd come over after a Children's Day church program to spend the night. They're all dead before dawn, not shot, not strangled, not poisoned, bludgeoned with an axe. The killer didn't rush, didn't panic, didn't flee when the youngest child woke up screaming. He waited. He entered through the unlocked kitchen door, no forced entry, walked barefoot across the hardwood, leaving no prints but faint smudges of blood on the floor. He found the master bedroom first, Josiah and Sarah asleep. Josiah received the most blows of any victim, between 20 and 30 strikes. Sarah never left the bed, both faces bludgeoned beyond recognition, the bedsheets pulled up over their heads afterward, as if the killer was tucking them in. Then he climbed the stairs, to the children's room. Herman first, 1 swing, then Catherine, then Boyd, then Paul, all still in bed, all facing the wall, all killed while lying down. Then he descended, back to the first floor, to the parlor bedroom where the Stillinger girls slept. Lena, struck so hard her jawbone snapped sideways. She had defensive wounds on her arms, the only victim who appears to have woken up. Ina, 8 years old, killed beside her. The axe was left in their room, confirming they were the last to die. The killer didn't take anything, no money missing from Josiah's wallet, no jewelry gone from Sarah's dresser, no food disturbed. But there were things added to the scene. A 4-pound slab of raw bacon, wrapped in a cloth, left on the bedroom floor, a piece of keychain beside it, clothing draped over every mirror and window in the house, as if the killer couldn't stand to see his own reflection or didn't want the dead to watch. But here's the thing, he cleaned himself. There's a wash basin with blood-tinged water still in the bowl, and on the floor nearby, Josiah's own long-handled axe, his axe, taken from his yard, not hidden, not dropped, leaned against the wall, as if the killer had set it down gently, like someone putting away a tool after a long day's work. That morning, neighbor Mary Peckham noticed the house was silent, no children playing, no movement. She called Josiah's brother Ross Moore, who found the door locked, peered through a window, and saw the bodies. City Marshal Hank Horton arrived minutes later, stepped inside, and froze. Not from gore, from silence. No flies yet, no smell of decay, just cold, thick, suffocating quiet, and the copper-sweet reek of fresh blood soaking into pine floorboards. They counted 8 bodies, 8 sets of pajamas, 8 pairs of shoes lined up by the front door, as if they'd taken them off before bed. And the front door, still unlocked. The screen door, latched from the inside. So the killer didn't leave through the front. He didn't climb out a window. Every latch was fastened, every sash tight. He didn't go down the cellar stairs. No footprints in the dust, no cobwebs broken. He vanished, like smoke, like breath in a frozen room. And the town, they didn't scream, they didn't riot, they whispered. Because just 5 days earlier, on June 5th, Roland Hudson and his wife had been bludgeoned in their sleep in Piola, Kansas. A pickaxe left behind. And before that, the Showman family in Ellsworth, Kansas. 5 dead, October 1911. The Dawson family in Monmouth, Illinois. 3 dead, same method. The Wayne and Burnham families in Colorado Springs. 6 dead in a single night. All axed, all asleep. All doors locked from inside. Same silence, same unanswered question. Who walks into a home like it's their own and leaves no trace but horror? The investigation didn't crack open, it caved in. Dr. J. Clark Cooper, one of the first physicians called to the scene, examined the wounds. The Iowa Attorney General's office sent investigators. Private detectives were hired by outraged citizens, but the crime scene was already ruined. Dozens of townspeople had tramped through the house before anyone thought to preserve evidence. Federal agent M.W. McClaughry arrived to lift fingerprints, found it impossible. Too many hands had already touched everything. But the wounds told their own story. Each blow landed with surgical consistency. Same angle, same depth, same arc. The killer was left-handed. Blood spatter patterns proved it. Not wild swings, not panicked fury. Targeted, between 20 and 30 blows per victim. The kerosene lamp chimneys had been removed and wicks turned low. He worked in near darkness, by feel. Then came the witnesses. A neighbor swore she saw a man in a black suit walking away from the Moore house at 1:15 a.m., carrying nothing. Another claimed she heard singing, not screaming, singing, a low, off-key hymn drifting from a window around midnight, though no one could say which hymn it was. But who was singing, in a house full of the dead? And the voice? She said it sounded wrong, too calm for anyone inside that house, almost serene. That's when investigators turned to Frank F. Jones, Iowa State Senator, bank founder, and Josiah Moore's former employer. Moore had left Jones's implement dealership and opened a competing store across town. Worse, he'd taken the lucrative John Deere franchise with him. There were whispers that Josiah had been having an affair with Jones's daughter-in-law. Jones had money, Jones had motive, Jones had connections. And one of those connections was a man named William Blackie Mansfield, a cocaine addict and suspected serial killer with ties to other axe murders across the Midwest. Someone reportedly saw Mansfield boarding a train near Villisca early on the morning of June 10th. The theory? Jones hired Mansfield to do what powerful men never do with their own hands. But Mansfield produced payroll records from an Illinois job that placed him elsewhere. A grand jury released him in 1916. Jones was never formally charged. Then came Reverend Lynn George Jacqueline Kelly, a traveling English preacher from the nearby town of Macedonia. Kelly had led the Children's Day program at the Presbyterian Church that very evening, the last event the Moore and Stillinger children attended alive. He'd been the last person to see all 8 victims breathing. On the morning after the murders, before any bodies had been found, Kelly told strangers on a train that 8 people had been killed in Villisca. No one had announced the death toll yet. In 1917, Kelly confessed, said God's voice commanded him, said he entered a trance-like state, a divine fury. He was left-handed, which matched the blood spatter analysis. He had a documented history of mental instability and sexual deviance. He confessed, then recanted. Said the confession was beaten out of him during an all-night interrogation. His first trial ended in a hung jury. His second trial, acquitted. 3 suspects, 0 convictions. And then there was Henry Lee Moore, no relation to the Villisca Moores, a drifter later convicted of axing his own mother and grandmother to death in Columbia, Missouri, December 1912. Federal agent M.W. McClaughry investigated and announced he'd linked Moore to 23 axe murders across 5 states. But Moore was never prosecuted for any of them. The case files gathered dust. The investigation had produced a state senator, a hired killer, a mad preacher, and a serial murderer, and none of them could be pinned to a single bloody fingerprint on that axe handle. The house still stands, 602 East 2nd Street, Villisca, Iowa. It's not boarded up, not condemned. It's a museum. In 1994, Darwin and Martha Lynn purchased the house and painstakingly restored it to look exactly as it did on the morning of June 10, 1912. Same wallpaper, same floorboards, same bedroom layout. They opened it for tours and for overnight paranormal investigations. The house is now on the National Register of Historic Places. Visitors come from around the world to walk the same hallway the killer walked. And the people who stay overnight, they say the floors breathe, that at exactly 1:13 a.m., the hallway light flickers, not from faulty wiring, but as if something passes through it. That on humid nights, you can smell something like kerosene burning, though no lamp has been lit in over a century. But the worst thing, the children's voices, not screams, whispers, calling each other's names. Herman, Catherine, Lena, always in that order, always soft, always just out of earshot. In 2015, a paranormal team set up infrared cameras, captured nothing. No cold spots, no EMF spikes, no orbs, just one thing. At 1:13 a.m., every single camera, 8 of them, lost signal for exactly 47 seconds. When feed returned, the axe, now a replica displayed in a glass case near the front door, had shifted. Not fallen, not tilted, rotated, blade now pointed upstairs, toward the children's room. Here's what haunts investigators to this day. No defensive wounds on any victim. Not one. 8 people, including a 43-year-old man, and none of them fought back. No skin under fingernails, no bruised knuckles, no overturned furniture. They were killed in their beds, faces covered with cloth afterward, mirrors draped, as if the killer was performing a ritual he'd rehearsed a dozen times before. The ceiling in the attic bedroom where the children slept was too low to swing an axe overhead, so the killer flipped it, used the blunt end, swung sideways. He adapted, he improvised, he knew the house, and the killer, he didn't wear a mask, he wore their trust. The Children's Day program, the Sunday evening fellowship, the hymn drifting from the window at midnight. It was someone who belonged, someone who knew which door would be unlocked, who knew the children would be sleeping upstairs, who knew Josiah's axe was in the yard, who knew the layout well enough to move through every room in near total darkness, lamp chimneys removed, wicks barely glowing. That's why the mirrors were covered, not superstition, recognition. The killer didn't want to see himself, or couldn't bear to be seen by what he'd done. And maybe, just maybe, that's why no one ever solved it, because the truth wasn't buried in the evidence. It was buried in the silence between the notes of that hymn, in the bacon left on the floor like an offering, in the covered mirrors, in the cloth draped over each victim's face, in the unlocked door, in the fact that, for over a century, no one has ever explained why 8 people died in their sleep, and the killer walked out into an Iowa night and vanished like he'd never existed. The Villisca Axe Murder House isn't haunted by ghosts. It's haunted by the unbearable weight of a question no one survived to answer. Drop a comment telling me which unsolved American murder house you want me to walk through next. And if this is your first time here, you know what to do. Because some doors shouldn't be opened twice.